Hello and welcome to the Under Center podcast. It is Super Bowl week and I am your host, Dara Marr. I'm delighted to be joined by the Malloy brothers, Rian and Fionn. Guys, how are we? It's Super Bowl week. Are you excited?
Yeah, absolutely buzzing. Can't wait to see it. Booked the day off on Monday, so should be a good time.
Yeah, it's almost as big as the ping pong Champions League finals, which gets really, really hyped. For anyone who hasn't seen the Super Bowl before, it's a big production. They get regional artists in to play during the halftime. It's a big production. They get a nice band in, and it's really nice. It's not quite the ping pong Champions League, but it's probably the next best thing.
Okay. I'm gonna segue past that very quickly, and I'm gonna go down to what Rian said at the start about booking off the Monday, which is very important. It's what I do my first day back after Christmas, is I book that day after the Super Bowl off. But as people are aware, we all play on the same team. I've been talking to a few people on the team the last few weeks, and they still haven't booked the day off on Monday. And you got to question what's going on in their head here.
Well, I'm one of them, Dara.
I am still questioning what's in your head a lot, but it's more than just not booking off the Monday after the Super Bowl.
Yeah, you got to question the dedication there.
Yeah, I think you do. I don't like Arizona's 6 hours behind, 7 hours behind now at this point. It's a long way back. It's a long time to stay up. Look,
it's still the same kickoff time every year.
Yeah,
doesn't matter what part of the country it's in.
But I'll avoid it. I won't listen to any news. I won't talk to you lads. Phone on silent till I get home, and I'll watch it then with a bit of dinner tomorrow even or on Monday evening. So I won't see the game live. I can promise you that.
There's no way you will not be able to avoid spoilers for pretty much a full day.
I've done it for years.
Right. Rian, what's your plans then for Super Bowl Sunday now that you know that you won't have to worry about work on the Monday?
My plan is probably go to bed at like 9 o'clock and wake up for it. I've tried the whole stay awake for a whole day, and it just ruins your day the next day. So I'm going to sleep early, waking up at right around kickoff time, watching it through. Maybe make some food or something. I don't know, hot dogs, American food. Make a little bit out of it, a few beers, and then just have a good time. I won't be betting, so I need to do something to entertain me.
Well, that is one part of it that, especially for people who do not watch American football or the NFL regularly, that they can get in and do a few prop bets. And there's always some fun prop bets to do when it comes to Super Bowl Sunday that gets everybody involved in that one. But I like the idea of taking the nap. The pre-game nap is important. It's vital for this. And like, I've already got mine down. I'm not going to go sleep that late. I'm probably going to, we finish training 1 o'clock, come home, have a shower, probably have a nap around then, maybe have a bit of lunch, so about 3, maybe sleep till about 4 or 5 or something like that, just to get me going then. And like that, I'll be the exact same. Few crisps, maybe pizza if the occasion warrants it, for sure. But we all know, me being the big guy, of course, it's the occasion always warrants it.
When is it not warranted?
Exactly. It's bulking season 365, that's what it is. I have to build that mass around my very flimsy calves, as I've been told a lot now these past couple of days. That's for true. Sure.
It's true.
But look, there's plenty more talk for flimsy calves when it comes to looking at the AFI season, which we will do after the Super Bowl. Today is all about the Super Bowl, or is it? Because we're not just talking about the Super Bowl today, because we're actually going to start off the show with a few head coaching hires we haven't had the chance to speak a bit more in depth about. And of course, one of them involves Rian, your team itself, which we will talk a little bit about. But if people want to hear a more in-depth reaction to the hiring of Frank Reich to the Panthers, you can go to our YouTube channel, Under Center Podcast. We are now doing our team-specific shows. Myself and Al have got to do a Seahawks show. Rian had his instant reaction show to Frank Reich being hired. Fionn, I'm still looking at my clock waiting for your show to drop.
Yeah, it's in the pipeline. Don't worry, Dara. It's in the pipeline.
There it is. Okay, that's it. That's all I need to know. That's all I need to know. But we will start actually probably with the biggest head coaching hire this past week, and that is, of course, Sean Payton is the new head coach of the Denver Broncos after they gave up a 2022 third round pick and a 2023 first round pick, and then a 2024, I believe, second round pick in exchange for Sean Payton and a third round pick next year. Compensation aside, guys, I'll start with you first, Fiona, on this. What do you think of the hire itself?
Yeah, I don't know if I see it. I would hope if he was hired that he came in with a grand plan of how he's going to manage everything that's gone on with the team over the last season. As I said, he's not been around the league. He's only covering the league last season. And a lot of the guys that come in as new head coaches, they have to come in with kind of a folder, a binder, a plan of how they're going to lay out at least the first season, what they want to accomplish, the kind of resources they're going to need. I don't know whether they did or not, but I hope they put him through the same rigor, because his name alone, I don't think warrants him getting that job. And on his side of things, I hope he considered it very carefully, because this is not an easy team to come into. There were a lot of problems. The quarterback is a problem. And it's also a problem because depending on who you speak to, it's Russell Wilson is gone, if you speak to me, or he's had a significant blip last season, and it's going to take a lot of work to get him back to the Russell Wilson that you signed the Denver Broncos when they did it last season. So I think there's a lot of work to be done, and I really hope for both parties' sakes that he has done his homework. He has a strong plan in place, and he knows exactly the kind of strategic targets that he needs to get in place that are going to help him turn this team around. The defense was okay. The defense was fine, but there's a lot of other problems on that squad.
Yeah, 100%. I agree with you, and I know that from like a very macro perspective, the hiring of Sean Payton makes sense, right? You have a guy who's coming in, offensive guy, kind of CEO type. So he's a lot of experience in the league. He's totally different to Nathaniel Hackett, but I've spoken about it in the past. I don't really see this mesh of quarterback and head coach working, because we saw when Sean Payton was in New Orleans, he was working with a shorter quarterback, same as Russell Wilson. But the way he managed it was to open up gaps on that O-line, create throwing lanes for Drew Brees to throw down the middle. And we know that Russell Wilson is allergic to that. So I'd like to see how that gets on between the pair, how their relationship goes, or whether they start to clash over things like that. So, yeah, it'll be interesting to see. But I think they gave up way too much to get him.
He also struggled when Drew Brees fell off in his last season. He didn't adapt very well, and he had a lot of very good weapons on that offense. And I think there are some nuggets on the Denver offense that he can mold, but it's nowhere near the same shape as what that Saints offense was when Drew Brees started to fall off. They don't have Alvin Kamara. They don't have a guy. What's the quarterback's name? The Swiss Army knife.
Taysom Hill.
They don't have a Taysom Hill. They didn't have Michael Thomas. And speaking of Michael Thomas, it also worries me how he dealt with that situation. I believe that was a serious falling apart in the relationship between him and the team. And if that happens in other places in Denver, I think it's going to be a big problem.
Phil, I disagree with you there. Michael Thomas was definitely not available when Drew Brees fell off that cliff.
All right, fair.
And the receiver core out there in Denver is actually quite good. He has got weapons to go to. He just needs somebody to put him in the right position to actually hit those weapons.
Yeah. I think it was it Emmanuel Ocho on the Speak show. He mentioned about the quarterback Sean Payton has worked with and what he has done to improve them, and he's mentioned the likes of Jameis, Andy Dalton, Drew Brees. Who else has he worked with there? Taysom Hill, I guess you could say he did want to play him as a quarterback. They were sort of players that never fulfilled their potential, and he brought them up. In Denver, it's a different situation. He has a quarterback that has seemingly peaked and now is on the regression. And I don't know how he can sort of change that and bring him back up. Because once you start going down, you don't really come back up. You might have a little peak here and there. You might have a little jump here and there, like the odd purple patch here and there, but I don't think that you can get back to the levels that you once were. I think that the type of head coach that Sean Payton is as well. He is the Pete Carroll type. He is the Bill Belichick type. He is, I am head coach. I am GM. I am everything in this organization here and now. I decide everything, which is interesting for George Payton's role as GM, whether that will continue, because obviously now he's getting a lot of criticism, the fact that he kept his job after everything that went so wrong last season with the Broncos. And with the news as well that Russell Wilson's team tree now will not be part of any coaching setup either, it seems to me as though Sean Payton is laying the groundwork for them to step away from Russell Wilson. That if he doesn't perform, I still think that if they can get a player out of him, great, keep him. He can be our guy. But if he's not going to be the guy, and if he's not going to go with Sean Payton's view of things and how the team needs to move forward, I think he would have no problem saying to Russ, thanks, no thanks, enjoy your contract, but we'd rather try get better with a quarterback that's going to align with my vision of how the team's going forward.
Well, I think it begs the question, whose decision is it? I think if it's his decision, then yeah, fair enough. I think if it's GM or even ownership's decision on whether or not Russell Wilson plays, he could be in big trouble. We don't know how Russell Wilson's going to react. He has been a difficult person, as you well know, in the Seattle and Pete Carroll era towards the end. Very vocal about what he wants, very vocal about how he wants to do it. We've had all sorts of stories come out last season about how some of his antics, while objectively driven at his own performance, certainly rubbed up his teammates the wrong way. I'm talking, of course, about warming up on the plane for 3 hours straight during an away game and these type of things. So I think it'll be as much about how Russell Wilson reacts to the way that Sean Payton wants to coach. And then on top of that, who makes the final decision about whether Russell Wilson stays or does not stay on this roster. And if that's Sean Payton, that's one thing. If it's not Sean Payton, it could be a whole other kettle of fish in this Denver Broncos locker room over the course of the 2023 season.
Yeah, 100% agree. And I think it's kind of a shame that they don't have as many picks as they might like coming into this season. Like they gave away their first rounder to Seattle to obviously bring in Russell Wilson. So if it was me, if I was Sean Payton, I absolutely wouldn't be closing the book on Russell Wilson just yet. We know he has that kind of at least had that MVP caliber to his game. So that must be locked away somewhere within his play. But I would be drafting a quarterback in like the 3rd round to kind of just put a little bit of pressure on him. You know, he's not going to be a starter right off the bat, but it's just kind of another message to Russell Wilson to go, hey, buddy, you're not the only option here, so you better play like you are.
Yeah, exactly.
Other options. Who have they got on the roster that could even fill in for him right now if they don't want to go that way? So let's say
is your man Brett Rippon still there?
Like, is that going to be good enough? I'm not sure. And are they going to be able to draw a good free agent backup with Russell Wilson in there? I don't know. This could very easily become a very nasty can of worms for the Denver Broncos if this doesn't pan out.
With the Broncos cap situation, with the fact that the money that they're paying Sean Payton, first of all, and the money that they're paying Russell Wilson, I don't think they'd be able to draft a quarterback in a 1st round scenario anyway with the money that they get. I don't think it would work cap wise. So they would have to take a flyer on a 3rd or 4th round, and hopefully that works out. Again, it kind of restricts their ability to go after any free agent quarterback or any other quarterback that may be on the trade block as well with the Russ contract. So they are in a perilous predicament, and we will talk a little more about it. We got the chance to speak to Conor Orr from the MMQB podcast and Sport Illustrated a little bit about this, which we will bring to you later on in the show. But it is interesting to see what's going to happen there in Denver over the next couple of weeks. Very quickly, Rian, I know you gave your reaction, like I said, on air, on our YouTube channel already with your own Panthers show. Frank Reich hired as the head coach. There's a little bit of scrutiny that comes with that. I think was it his daughter that was hired 3 days after the season ended or something like that. And now they're thinking that the interview process wasn't right. I think Steve Wilkes is considering legal action against the team as well. That stuff, we'll wait and see if it happens. But on the positive side, he brings in a new defensive coordinator. Elijah, I think that's how you pronounce it. I keep getting it wrong. Evero, the former DC in Denver with the Broncos, the only thing that kind of went right with the team last year. So your reaction to your new defensive coordinator?
Yeah, so I think this really makes the Frank Reich hire even better, right? So it was kind of an on the fence one for me. There was a little bit of consistency issues there, but bringing in this guy, Ejiro Evero, makes this head coach hire it makes it look like they mean business, right? Because even though he was a first year guy last season, that was the jewel in that that Broncos crown last season. They were the only thing really that was going right for the team. So he is a young guy, but he looks like he's able to rally a team around him. He might be able to bring over some of that talent from Denver. Carolina are not in the worst cap position at the moment. So yeah, we'll see how it goes, but it really looks like that they really mean business this season. And I think Evero is going to bring that defense from good as it was last year up to great this year.
Yeah, I'm happy Frank Reich got a head coaching job. I think he got the short end of the stick a little bit in that Indianapolis Colts situation. That was not a good football team. And look, Jeff Saturday by no means is a top tier head coach, but they didn't get any better once Frank Reich left. So that's always kind of usually a good sign that it wasn't all down to the coach, and some of it's got to be roster issues. So I think him getting a new head coaching job, I still think he's going to be on a short leash, right? That season last season, I believe, is going to follow him. If he can perform well at the Carolina Panthers, that'll cool his seat down a little bit. But I really feel like if they get off to a rocky start to the season, that last season is going to be taken into account, as it is in most places. But I think he's going to fit in well. And like you said, Ejiro, I like what he did, as you said, Rain. The Denver Broncos played really well. They got better at defense over the course of the season as well. So I like his ability to develop players that he has and develop a scheme that really fits the type of athletes that he has on that Carolina defense.
Yeah, absolutely agree that Reich definitely did get the short end of the stick there last season. The Colts didn't play good football, but there was a lot wrong within that organization. I mean, there was rumors that the quarterback brought in and Matt Ryan was the owner's quarterback as opposed to the GM's quarterback or the head coach's quarterback. Frank Reich actually has a pretty good record when he's working with decent quarterbacks. You know, he had excellent seasons when I've forgotten his name, the guy who retired early for the Colts.
Andrew Luck.
Andrew Luck, yeah, he had some excellent seasons there. He even worked well with Carson Wentz when he was there. And when Jacoby Brissett was thrown in the deep end, we saw he did well there too. And he didn't do well over at the Browns this season. So, yeah, I think if he's given the quarterback that he can work with, he's going to do good things. And I think that's where the Panthers are probably going with the draft.
Yeah, perfect. We will move on then to the other head coach hire that we know of so far, and that is D'Amico Ryans, who is going to be is the new head coach, I should say, of the Houston Texans. An interesting hire, of course. Ryans played with the Texans during his career. He's thought of fondly back in Houston. He was offered the Broncos job as well, as far as we're aware. He turned it down to take the Texans job. He obviously sees more potential in that. Interesting that what route is he going to take? Because Robert Saleh, of course, was the defensive coordinator at the 49ers before Ryans. He's now with the Jets. Started off rocky. He started off his career rocky. Had a good season at the start of his second year this year. Tailed off towards the end of the season. Quarterback issues and being one of the main contributors to that. Do we see a similar sort of pathway for D'Amico Ryans in Houston? Because quarterback is going to be the big question. Does he go after a veteran in free agency? Does he go after Jimmy G now, who's going to be a free agent, who he knows from his time with the 49ers? Or does he go with the draft, go for the unknown quantity with that second pick, possibly might trade up to try and get to the first pick, who knows. But Ryan, I'll start with you first on this one. D'Amico Ryans to the Texans.
Yeah, for me, it makes a lot of sense. They've had a couple of offensive guys in there, and it hasn't really panned out. I think now is the right time to start shoring up that defense. And I think D'Amico Ryans is obviously the guy to do that, right? That 49ers defense they left has been absolutely fantastic in the entire time that he's been there. So, yeah, I like that hire. In terms of what they're going to do, I think they won't be as hamstrung as Salah was with Wilson, because I'd say they'll probably go for Bryce Young in that number 2 overall spot, and I'd say he's probably going to come into the league ready to go. He's coming out of Alabama. They always come into the league ready to go, so he won't have to worry about that. He'll have a nice cool head at quarterback, and then he can start building on that defense, and I really think that's where they're going to be solid in the future. And yeah, I mean, it's all looking up for the Texans at the minute.
Yeah, I'd say they're hoping a bit of that offensive guru might have rubbed off on him as well while he was in that San Francisco 49ers building. I agree with Reno. I think there's going to be good opportunities for him. I really just hope the management and the ownership gives him the time to establish himself. Again, this is another case of, I hope he came in with a really strong plan. He was very direct about what he needs. I'm sure he did. I believe he was even a captain there in the Texans when he played. I think it's a great cultural fit. I think it's nice to see another black head coach in the NFL. That's important as well. Down in Texas, as Reen said, there's a full of opportunities. They've got a great pick in the draft that he gets to have input in. And I don't think he can really go wrong. As Reen said, if they go for quarterback and Bryce Young, he's shown a lot of different talents. He seems to be of the mold of quarterback that has fit in at least reasonably well in the NFL. We're yet to see how they all pan out, but most of them have been starting caliber quarterbacks. So that'll be really good to see. Again, I just hope the leash is long enough to give him time to work out some kinks. It's a 6-year contract, and I kind of talked to Connor about that in our conversation later on. So maybe he can shed a bit of light on what that means for D'Amico Ryans, and does it give any indication about how the Texans ownership see his potential reign while he's there as head coach of the Houston Texans.
And I think that is a perfect segue to introduce our first interview of our Super Bowl preview show. Reen or Fionn mentioned it there. It is Conor Orr of Sports Illustrated and, of course, from the MMQB podcast. We're going to take a quick break, and when we come back, we will show you our chat with Conor. And welcome back to the Under Center podcast. Dara here with Jake and Fionn, and I'm delighted to be joined by our first guest this evening. He is, of course, with Sports Illustrated and one of the hosts of the MMQB podcast. It's Conor Orr. Conor, it's great to speak to you. How are you?
I'm doing well, thanks. How are you guys?
Very excited. Very excited. The Super Bowl is finally here.
Sunday.
It's the end of a long season. This is going to be a good game. This is probably schematically like the second or third best matchup that I could have asked for, but it's not bad. And so I hope that the time between now and then gives us two healthy quarterbacks, because I would like to see everybody at 100%.
I was saying it's probably the most boring matchup that we could have got. Now, very good football, I'm sure, but in terms of storylines, the 2 1 seeds squaring off, I felt it was a little bit the most boring matchup we could have had out of the playoffs.
And from a writer's perspective, it's like, okay, Andy Reid used to coach the Eagles. We get it. Travis and Jason Kelce are brothers. We get it. There's, some cute stuff for sure. But, I'm more interested in my favorite Super Bowl, I think, that I covered live was Rams Patriots. We had Bill Belichick and Sean McVay. And it's like, here's something that we've never seen before. And we're going to see a coach who cover a team or play defense against a team that's just going to completely ruin that scheme forever. And, force Sean McVay to do so much adjusting. And, that's the kind of Super Bowl I like. I don't know if I'm going to get that this time. I think it might be a little bit of a shootout, but it'll be fun.
Yeah, it seems like it's going to be nonstop. You mentioned it was got your second or third favorite matchup. What would be your ideal setup here for the Super Bowl if you had to pick?
I wanted Bengals 49ers. Just because with a full steam Brock Purdy, I just thought that team was so good. And to have them lose the way that they did was a little bit disappointing. I was at that game and, I don't know. It was 7-0 for a long time. I mean, DeMeco Ryans kept him in that game and I just thought they deserved another shot, but when you have two quarterbacks go down and give Christian McCaffrey throwing passes, there's not a whole lot you can do,
It was sort of the end of the playbook, sort of looking through their trick plays, saying, "Can we do this? And what can we do?" By the end of that game, definitely for the 49ers for sure. But I need to ask you before we start. Actually, have you ever had the chance to come over to Ireland before?
No, it's on my bucket list. So we did our 23andMe. I'm only Irish, so I should go over there at some point, So I'm all good guy. But no, my wife's Italian, and so we thought maybe for our 10-year we would do a couple days where she's from, a couple days where I'm from, and check it out. But I want to go over there. Where should I go? That's the good question.
You start off in Dublin and then you hit the West Coast. That's your ideal kind of, yeah.
Okay.
First point is on the Under Center podcast.
Yes. Is it true that everyone pees on the Blarney Stone?
No, they kiss it. So I hope they don't pee on it.
Well, when I was someone in my family was planning a trip and she said you can't kiss it because everyone pees on it. It's to trick all the tourists. That's something that someone told me the other day.
It's not the locals kissing
It's
on
pretty
it.
high up in the air. It'd be a pretty good trick now if you're able to pee up onto it, I'd have to say. Unless you're a man who looks after, there's a guy who kind of holds your legs as everyone dangles over. So maybe when it's a few quiet days, maybe you get stuck up there with a can of Guinness and there's nowhere else to go. Maybe.
Okay. All right. Good. All right. I'm coming then. I'm in.
Definitely. And that is. When Jake says you start in Dublin, work your way to the West, that means you have to work your way through any pub you find as well in the West. Because progressively, if you only look for sort of the old men pubs, because that's where you're going to get the best Guinness. Because if you could walk into a pub and you see a line of older guys sitting at the bar, all drinking Guinness, you know that the Guinness is going to be good in there because they won't accept a bad pint.
See, I heard that. I heard that it's just unbelievable. It's like something you've never tasted before, and I considered myself for a long time a pretty good Guinness drinker, but again, I've never had it over there. I've had it in London, but I've never had it in Ireland. So
it doesn't compare. It doesn't compare. As an avid Guinness drinker myself.
I'm looking forward to it.
But let's talk some football though, because before we get into the game, I was actually reading your article on Sean Payton because he's obviously about to become the Broncos' new head coach. And you mentioned, without giving the whole article away, you mentioned a few interesting things and some of the issues he's going to have to deal with, obviously including Russell Wilson and the contract, the DC. I always get this name wrong, Ehiro Evero. And then, of course, the idea of maybe bringing, if Evero leaves, Big Fangio in as well. But one thing that interests me, you were comparing the end of his tenure with the Saints to him coming into the Broncos and sort of being in a similar situation. And, some of the talk when Peyton left the Saints was that he wasn't interested in doing a rebuild with the team, but it looks like he would have to do something similar to that now with the Broncos. So What do you feel is changing his mind? And other than the obvious, the paycheck, why do you think he's interested in taking on the Broncos rebuild?
I kind of just think he got too far down the road in this process and didn't want to lose out on a job. And I think he just kind of took one. And to me, like you just mentioned, if Russell Wilson is not the player that he once was, you got to move on from him before the end of that contract. And if you move on from him before the end of that contract, it creates a lot of salary cap complications, a lot of dead money, worse than Jared Goff left with the Rams or Carson Wentz left with the Eagles. And you can manipulate that to some degree. But, if they moved on from Russell Wilson, say after this, like post June 1, their salary cap is going to be just as bad, if not worse, than the Saints. And you're going to have no draft capital because you had to trade for Sean Payton and you had to trade 2 firsts for Russell Wilson. So, I mean, it seems like a big rebuild to me. And again, maybe you get to hold on to Ejiro for a little bit because he is still under contract with the Broncos and you're not going to let him go because he's super talented. But if he somehow gets away, I think that defense is in for a huge regression because I think Ejiro is one of the best defensive coordinators in the NFL. And so you're looking at maybe generously like an 8 or 9 win team. And is that why you came out of retirement and left the Saints, which was an 8 or 9 win team anyway?
And Connor, on your side, we see other teams obviously are looking for head coaches at the moment. I know the Colts are one of those teams, and they're going through a pretty exhaustive interview process. But I think they just recently announced they had 7 or 9 candidates are still going for their head coaching position. On the Broncos side of things, do you think this was a signing based on the mystique or the record of Sean Payton more than maybe a plan that he pitched to ownership that they were impressed by?
I think that Sean was not their first choice. I think they wanted DeMeco Ryans, who just got hired by the Texans. And I think, once DeMeco signed with Houston, I think it was between Sean Payton and Jim Harbaugh. And I think, Jim Harbaugh is obviously committed at Michigan. And I don't know if he wants to jump back to the NFL. I think he does. But I think Jim has a chance to wait for the right opportunity. And so that left them kind of at the end of the game of musical chairs, and Sean ended up being the guy that they called. But, I can't imagine you setting out for that process and wanting to trade draft capital, wanting to spend $20 million a year on a head coach when you could get an entire coach's first contract for $20 million. DeMeco Ryans will cost $20 million over his first 4 years, And so, there's a lot to like about that. And so I think Sean Payton is probably not something they wanted to do, but I think, at some point you have to grab onto something if the boat's sinking.
Connor, you just mentioned there DeMeco Ryan. He got 6 years total in Texas. Now, I don't know how head coaches' salaries and contracts work, but I think we all know the history of that Texans franchise. If he doesn't turn it around in year 1, they will easily cut ties with him. Are the numbers on coaches' contracts just kind of made up? Yeah, we'll give you 6 years because if you work out well, we want you locked in. But in reality, none of that money is guaranteed, and they'll just heave him out the door if they have to.
No, that's what's interesting about coaching contracts, right? They're totally the opposite of player contracts where, if DeMeco Ryans gets fired, they have to pay him throughout the remainder of that contract. And now what they do have is what's called offset language. And so if DeMeco gets fired after a year, let's say in Houston, and then goes back to the 49ers to be the defensive coordinator, the Texans owe him the difference between his head coaching salary and what the 49ers would pay him. But it's they're locked in. And I mean, DeMeco is a hot name. So I think what he was able to do is command those extra years. Typical coaching contracts are about 4 years for about $4 to $5 million a year for first-time guys. And I'm sure DeMeco got 6 and probably a little bit more than 4 to 5 million too.
There's no wonder Cliff Kingsbury booked that one-way ticket to Thailand. He's getting paid up for a long time there now.
Stay there as long as you want.
Moving on then to the game on Sunday. I also got a chance to read your early predictions for the Super Bowl, and there was some interesting takes in it. Obviously, the Tom Brady one obviously aged poorly because obviously Tom didn't let you know he was going to retire.
Not yet. We don't know that. He could always.
You said this before.
He said this before. We've been here.
But you mentioned as well about the officials and how you think that nothing will be said about the issues that they've had this year. And of course, we all know about the questionable calls made in the two championship games last week. Carl Sheffers is, of course, going to be the lead referee for this game. And he actually ranks first in total penalties per game with around 12.5, 13 penalties this season. And he was actually top last season as well. The last thing I'm sure the NFL need at the moment is a game to be dominated, especially the Super Bowl to be dominated by the officials. And especially with last season, with the questionable calls, I think of like the phantom PI call on, I think it was Logan Wilson towards the end of the game. The no call on Jalen Ramsey with the face mask for the long touchdown to start of the third quarter. So do you think maybe Roger Goodell is in the ear saying, maybe, lads, let's let this game go on a little longer. Let's not make you the center of attention this year?
I think a lot of officials tend to shrink in big games. I think that's been historically accurate, regardless of what their scores have been during the season, because there is a legitimate fear, right? I mean, who wants the Super Bowl to be about them and you're not on either one of the teams, right? And I think that we see a lot of whistles, call it whistle swallowing, right? At this point during the year, and you just kind of pretend it doesn't exist. And it's tough because teams have all this intel on these refs and they prepare for these referees. And then if all of a sudden they decide to get really conservative, that changes the specter of, what you're trying to do and your game plan. I remember the Bengals were, hoping that it would be kind of more of a physical game so their receivers could kind of beat people up at the line and win. And that ended up being the case that allowed them to come back and kind of score with the Rams for a little while in that game. So it's all up in the air, but I'd say this is one of the worst postseasons for officiating I can remember in recent times. And so the hope is, I would prefer they swallowed the whistle than they didn't, right? I mean, the last thing we want to do is see 35 penalties called in the Super Bowl.
Yeah. But then also on the other side of things, it is sort of down to, it is their still responsibility. If they do see the foul, that they are still going to have to call it. Because the last thing also that they want is non-calls to be taking up all the space on the back pages of the papers the next day. And that it's that balance that they try and strike at. It is so difficult, and that's what they always say. Wearing the black and white stripes is a no-win situation for them.
It really is. But I think the NFL hangs them out to dry, right? Because we could always do Sky Judge. We could always have, and maybe it makes the game 10 or 15 minutes longer, but I don't mind. I mean, the Alliance of American Football did it in the States. I thought it was really successful during their trial run where, you have that camera, you have those drone cameras up there. You can see a foul. You can have an official from the booth that's seeing things the way that we're seeing it, right? And so then he can report that down to the field and generate a call. And so I think, that ends up being an ideal situation, and it's one that I don't know if the league is ready to commit the resources, the time, the effort, or whatever it is into that.
Yeah, and looking then at the play, at the actual players and the teams in this game, we always say that games are won in the trenches. And that was very important as well for even the game last week between the Eagles and the 49ers, that the Eagles on both sides of the ball, their O-line, their D-line dominated, which obviously helped them win that game. When I see this game, I think back to 2021 when the Bucs beat the Chiefs in the Super Bowl, and the Chiefs had a banged O-line. Mahomes was injured actually for that game. I think he had turf toe for that as well. And now he's in this. He still has the high ankle sprain. He seemed okay, but we don't know really how damaged his ankle is. And they're coming up against obviously this dominating defense. I think 4 of their defensive linemen had over 10 sacks each in the season. But they've invested in this O-line now, like obviously drafting Creed Humphrey, signing Orlando Brown, Joe Thuney. So they've recognized that they're going to have to invest in the O-line. Obviously, maybe sacrificing, like getting rid of players like Tyreek Hill and having to let him go. How important is this O-line, D-line, especially for the Chiefs O-line, the Eagles D-line, going to be important on Sunday?
Yeah, I agree with you. I mean, I think that's where the game's going to be won and lost. I think the Eagles have a lot more speed off the edge than the Bengals did, and therefore I think that they're going to force the Chiefs to be a little bit more uncomfortable than the Bengals. I mean, Hassan Reddick basically won that game for them, the conference championship game against San Francisco. He hurt Brock Purdy, and then I think on the next play, pushed them back like another 10 or 15 yards on their next drive with a huge sack. And so I think combined with some, Ndamukong Suh, Linval Joseph, Fletcher Cox, all of their pocket pushers, they're going to give Patrick Mahomes all he can handle. Mahomes is going to have more time to rest the ankle, but high ankle sprain's a high ankle sprain, right? It's going to hurt for 4 to 6 weeks, and that's that. There's not a whole lot that you can do to change that. And so it'll be a lot about Mahomes' pain tolerance, but I don't know how you scheme up a lot of protection. Like, I think there was a lot of just criticism of Andy Reid the year that they lost to the Buccaneers in the Super Bowl, and he didn't give Mahomes any help in the backfield. There was no second tight end. There was nobody chipping anybody. And so I think it's one of those situations where, is this the same kind of thing? You want to walk into a situation and not protect your guy back there.
Connor, we saw as well in the conference championship game as well, a little bit of an uptick in Pacheco's receiving yards and receptions in the game. Was that down to, you think, just a scheme against the Bengals? Was it to do with Mahomes' ankle, or was it an extra wrinkle brought in ahead of this game against the Eagles just to give them something extra to think about coming out of the backfield?
I think Mahomes has really liked throwing to his backs, especially over the second half of the season. It really just helps when you're the kind of quarterback who likes to extend the play with your legs, and then you don't have Tyreek Hill. The running back is just a nice option to have there as a check down. And when you have McKinnon and now Pacheco, who is becoming a more comfortable ball carrier, I mean, you look at all the success San Francisco's had. How many of their passes are just 2 or 3 yard checkdowns to running backs and wide receivers? And sometimes it's like, why are we overcomplicating this? Why aren't we just getting the ball to our best athletes? And Pacheco especially can wear a defense down. That physicality, compounded over the course of 2 quarters is going to make a big difference.
Yeah, I really like Pacheco. I think he's actually a really, really good running back for that Chiefs team. Connor, do you think that the Mahomes ankle injury is going to really affect him? I know he was kind of removed from the injury report, I think, prior to the Bengals game, but this Eagles D-line is a bit more fierce than what the Bengals D-line is.
I mean, I think it can't not affect him, right? I mean, he's human. And, maybe he's going to have pain tolerance that's higher than the average person, whatever. Maybe he gets a pain injection before the game. But, high ankle sprains are what they are. And some of us do tolerate pain better than others. We saw Patrick Mahomes go on the run to set up a win against the Bengals. So I think he's capable of doing it. It's just, can the Eagles force him to do it over and over and over again to the point where it becomes untenable?
Yeah. On the 49ers, sorry, the Eagles side of things, on their offense, obviously they are quite a run-heavy offense, and the Chiefs, especially in the AFC Championship game, stopped the run quite well against the Bengals. Joe Burrow himself, or even Joe Mixon, didn't really get many yards. And this Eagles offense, with the amount of weapons it has, if it is Miles Sanders or Kenneth Gainwell or even Boston Scott, if they can't get the run going, they have these dangerous weapons in AJ Brown, Devonta Smith, and Dallas Goedert. Especially with this sort of youngish backfield that the Chiefs have at the moment, it is definitely a matchup to watch.
Yeah, and I think what helps the Eagles is obviously having Hurts as part of that running game. And it changes the equation. I'm interested to see what the Chiefs try to do with Chris Jones, because to me, he's really their only option to stopping everything. If Chris Jones has a good game, I think the Chiefs have a better chance of winning. I slightly favor the Eagles at this point because I think that offensive line can handle anything you throw at it. And if you try to stick Chris Jones in the middle, I've seen Jason Kelce take care of Dexter Lawrence pretty easily on his own. Chris Jones, is he that much better than Dexter Lawrence? Probably not. I think Jason Kelce can handle him with some help from his guards. You try to stick him on the outside, Lane Johnson held Nick Bosa to no quarterback hits last week. And so he's playing the best football he's played all year despite his own injuries. So I think that offensive line is such an equalizer. And if you can take Chris Jones out of a play, you're going to be able to run the ball against the Chiefs. The Bengals just didn't have the offensive line to do that.
Connor, do you think the back end of this Eagles defense is also going to be very important? They've played very well this season, but I think a criticism that has been leveled at them, if you could level a criticism, is that maybe they haven't always been tested to the max. Certainly in the conference championship game, they never really got out of third gear and didn't really have to get out of third gear, but they have played well. How have you assessed the back end of that defense?
I think it's a really talented defense. I think it's a really experienced defense. And when you're playing that Fangio style kind of umbrella defense, there's a lot of things that you don't have to worry about that you would have previously, and I don't think Patrick Mahomes is going to break one of these big classic Mahomesian 60 or 70-yard throws. It's going to be a lot of dealing with Kelsey. It's going to be a lot of the intermediate stuff and how well they tackle. But I think that style of defense helps your backs out a lot. It saves them from getting burned and saves them from having no safety help. And so, all that said, I don't know if there's anybody necessarily on the Chiefs that's going to, blow the doors off of them, because the Bengals are the best receiving core in the league.
Connor, you just mentioned that the receiver core is there on the let's say on the Chiefs here, but we know that there's a few injuries now that just came out of that Bengals game. Mecole Hardman I don't think he's looking too good. Kadarius Toney and Juju Smith-Schuster also came out with some injuries. So what do you do in that situation when your receivers are not 100%? You can't 100% rely on Travis Kelce.
Well, it's going to be tough, but I think that was their plan all along this year, was to develop a deeper core of receivers. I think Mahomes was just too dependent on Tyreek and Kelce for so long, but how could you not be? Because they're always open. But I think this forced him to become a better quarterback and to throw guys open. And now you're seeing guys like Justin Walter, or some of these guys who are your third, fourth, fifth string guys are catching big touchdowns this year, catching big first down passes, because he's developed that. Sky Moore had a big game last week, and I could see them using him out of the backfield in the slot, a lot of places like that, just to kind of open up the defense too. I think he's hitting his stride a little bit.
Excellent. And look, last question we have to ask you: who are you going for?
Oh, this is going to be a tough one. I have the Eagles by a point. I think I like them 31-30. I think they get out to a hot start. Their first and second drives, especially their scripted drives, are so good. That offensive line is just going to be really juiced. They're healthy as they're going to be, right? And so, I think they get out to a fast start, and as long as they can hold off that Mahomes rally, I think they're going to win. And again, they haven't been tested like the Chiefs have been tested, but the Eagles are really good. They're really, really talented.
Excellent. Listen, Connor, we really appreciate the time. I forgot to ask you, heading out for the game on Sunday?
I'm leaving on Monday morning, and so I'm touching down there like sometime around Monday afternoon, and we'll be there all week. I can't wait. Very excited.
Excellent stuff. Are you recording an episode of the podcast out there?
Yeah, we're going to do like prop bets on Monday, which will be fun. And then at some point on Sunday, we will record the podcast when we're done writing. So we'll probably start recording at like 7 a.m. after the game, stay up all night working, and then we'll record the podcast, and then we'll sleep on our flights home.
Connor, one quick question there. And during the off season, is it possible we might get a Connor Gary Gramlin appearance on the Under Center podcast?
Anytime. I don't know how Irish Gary is. I'm going to ask, but he's. I'm sure he would.
We got in a lot of family trees there, so I'm sure there's some Irish in there somewhere.
Yes. Absolutely. Anytime.
Excellent. Connor, we really appreciate your time again. Thanks so much. Enjoy the game on Sunday, and we'll talk to you for sure in the off season.
For sure. Thanks, guys.
You know why Madden's so different this year? Field sim. It changes everything. So I can finally throw the rock.
Hey, check it. Okay, I feel unstoppable. Losing's impossible.
Put the ball where only I can catch it.
Thing they know.
Yo, Hit Boy, what you think?
I could make the biggest hit in the game, man.
You ain't lying, bro.
We live?
Oh, we live.
We made it till you got dollars. Go out and shop for you.
Taylor?
Wait, just...
We're live?
Wait, what? Slice up the defense with Field Sense.
You can do that too.
We need some big plays, big hits right now.
Say less.
Game on the
Woo. Now that's a hit.
time we do the
Touche.
So, what can you change with Field Sense?
now. I don't judge, I seen you staying down for the come up till I reign supreme.
Everything.
Let's get it. Yeah. Hit boy. We got another one. Ha. Man, y'all boys ain't ready for this, man.
And you're welcome back to the next part of the Under Center podcast Super Bowl preview show. The Kansas City Chiefs against the Philadelphia Eagles, both number one seeds in the AFC and the NFC this past season. A big thank you to Conor Orr of Sports Illustrated and the MMQB podcast for taking the time to speak to us. We really appreciate it. And no doubt we will have him back on the show at some stage in the off season. Before we move on and look ahead to the game itself from our end, make sure if you haven't already, you are following us on our social channels. That is at UnderCenterPod on Twitter, the same on Instagram, UnderCenter Podcast on YouTube. Make sure you subscribe to that because, like I mentioned at the start of the show, we are doing more team-specific shows. So we could be talking about your team if you're a Seahawks fan, Commanders fan, Panthers fan, Patriots fan. I hope I'm not forgetting anyone, Giants fan. We have shows lined up for all of those teams, and we are actively looking to get obviously more people involved too who support other teams to get as many shows. Hopefully we can get to a scenario we can get all 32 teams having their own show on the YouTube channel. So make sure you are subscribed to it to be kept up to date with the latest shows. You can also listen back to them via our podcast system, Under Center Podcast, wherever you get your podcasts. That is where you're going to find it. I'm only realizing now how many times I've said the word podcast in the last 2 minutes, and it's starting to wreck my head a little bit. So instead of saying podcast, let's talk about Super Bowl. Lads, this game is a fascinating matchup between two high-scoring offenses, one obviously excellent defense, and one maybe flying under the radar defense about how well they've played. So many areas to look at in terms of areas to watch. Obviously possible betting scenarios, which we'll get into in the last part of the show. But Fionn, I just want your opinion first as a whole in this game. Do you think we have the two best teams in the NFL this season going up for the Super Bowl?
Without a doubt. I think we got the two best teams playing the two best brands of football, if that makes sense. They were the most consistent over the course of the season. They have dealt with everything that's been thrown at them. I know there's a lot of people leveling accusations about who has been battle tested and not. And I think a battle is a battle. We all played American football. It doesn't really matter what the opposition is like. You need to put them away. You need to win the games, and you need to beat the teams that are put in front of you. You can't control what the strength of schedule or any of these metrics that are done to determine whether or not a team has faced a harder or an easier road to the Super Bowl. It doesn't matter. You got to the Super Bowl. Everyone's going to need a little bit of luck. They're going to need a little bit of a schedule break here or there. But at the end of the day, you're going to have to win a couple of playoff games at the very least to get yourself into the Super Bowl. And both teams have done that. And they've showed they could do that from the very start of the season. Yeah, I don't think there's any argument that just on a purely metric point of view, these are the two best teams in the NFL at the moment.
Yeah, couldn't agree more. I'm totally looking forward to this game. You know, there's so many like little matchups to watch throughout the whole thing. Like the Eagles have traditionally not been great versus tight ends, and they're playing against the best tight end in the world at the minute. Coming into this, you know, the Chiefs have not been very good against running quarterbacks, and here we go. One of the best running quarterbacks in the league this year is going up against them. So it's just a fascinating matchup overall.
Totally. And that is the first part that I want to have a look at. You mentioned about the rushing attack of the Eagles, because it is Jalen Hurts is a big part of that. It's also Miles Sanders. If it's not Miles Sanders, it's Boston Scott. If it's not Boston Scott, it's Kenneth Gainwell. There's so many different ways that the Eagles can run at you with the ball. The Chiefs, especially in the AFC Championship game, They played the run very well against Joe Mixon and Samaria P. Ryan of the Bengals. But this Eagles attack has shown all season that they have the ability to rush on any sort of defense. And I guess one of the keys to it is if you can keep the ball out of Jalen Hurts' hands as much as you can in terms of throwing it, it's probably the best scenario possibly, is it, for the Eagles to win this game?
Yeah, I think you're probably right there. Whenever Jalen Hurts has the ball in his hands, he's dangerous, right? So it might not necessarily be a downfield pass. He has got excellent receivers on the outside. But even when those guys don't get open, he is so dangerous with his legs. They need to continue to force the Eagles into running the football, and even then, that's going to be so tough to stop. So yeah, I'm not sure what way this game is going to go.
Yeah, I think for me, it's going to come down to the trenches. And I feel like I'm going to have come back to this point almost every question you're going to ask, Dara, because really, if you can dominate that line of scrimmage as a defensive line for the Kansas City Chiefs, it'll put some pressure on the Philadelphia Eagles. Yes, we know they're a very high-flying offense. Typically, they're doing that from a lead, and typically they're doing that from a lead that they've developed on the ground. If you can really establish yourself and really establish the line of scrimmage, not just stop the run game from the running backs. We saw the 49ers just about be able to do that for the first quarter of their game against the Eagles, where they wouldn't quite rush as deep as they traditionally had, forcing Jalen Hurts to stay in the pocket. But the key is, if you do that, you have to make sure that he also feels the pressure. If they can establish a good pocket around him, we know this year that he has the arm talent to beat you. So I think you got to somehow get a mix of applying the pressure and establishing the line of scrimmage. I think that's going to put the maximum amount of pressure on this Eagles offense that they haven't quite been able to put up against so far this season.
And Fionn, you mentioned in the trenches as well, and we've seen the job, especially in the NFC Championship game. We saw the job that the O-line of the Eagles did on that very dangerous front for the 49ers, including Joey Bosa, who was made, you could say, was just not a part of that game at all for large chunks. They really took him out of that game. They knew he was the danger man. When it comes to the Chiefs, it's Chris Jones, and Chris Jones, normally more interior sort of defender, but has played a few snaps, obviously a percentage, I should say, of the snaps on the outside as well. It's going to be interesting to see where they line him up in this game, to see if they see him, I don't know, on one side, left side of the line, that are the Eagles going to try purposely run the ball away from him? Because it tends to be, if it's Chris Jones one side, it's Frank Clark on the other side. And despite of the despite like the anonymity of Frank Clark during the regular season, when it comes to these big games, he does seem to show up, get his name in the sack count a couple of times, or tackle for a loss. You know, is it going to help the Chiefs go against this Eagles offensive line if they have a multiple danger men on the defensive line against this O-line, rather than the 49ers, like I mentioned, who have that one stud in Nick Bosa? They can give the attention to him, and they didn't really have to worry about the rest of the defensive line. If you understand what I'm saying, I'm kind of going on tangents here.
Absolutely. No, I think that's absolutely a key. And it doesn't necessarily give them an upper hand, but it gives that defensive or offensive line, I beg your pardon, an extra wrinkle that they maybe haven't had to face yet, an extra question that you get to ask them on the biggest stage and see if they can hold up against the pressure. If I'm the Kansas City Chiefs, what I think I want to do is start off by establishing that strong line, keeping Hurts in the pocket. If you give up a couple of passes, trust the back end of your defense a little bit in the first quarter. Then as the game goes on, now that you've established that pocket, he doesn't feel comfortable or feel like there's a natural space out there for him to roll out to. Then I think you can start bringing pressures up the middle, whether that's blitzing up with your middle linebacker, whether that's putting Chris Jones back in the center if you've had him out on the edge, just mixing that up, trying to find that weak gap, not giving the offensive line any respite. And by no means do I think it's a weak point in this offensive line. I cannot call this. I do not know who has the upper hand. I think they could easily be able to deal with this pressure. The only thing I can say is I think it's a pressure that they haven't had to deal with so far this season. So there's definitely a question mark there for me about whether they can really generate a type of pressure that they haven't had to face so far this season.
Yeah, the only one that springs to...
We saw the Commanders, another top defensive line. They were able to put the kibosh on Jalen Hurts, so we'll see.
Yeah, I was about to mention the Cowboys as well. They have obviously got a very strong defensive line there as well. And they did all right versus the Eagles. I wouldn't say that they dominated the game, and I think that's probably because you have so many stars across that O-line for the Eagles. I mean, when's the last time you could truthfully say you knew 3 players' names off an opposing team's O-line? Like Lane Johnson, Jordan Mailata, and Jason Kelsey all on the same team. Those guys are all probably all pro level. And yeah, they're going to deal with whatever pressure comes. Now, it will be a case of can Frank Clark and can Jones get that pressure on maybe a few snaps, because they're not going to be running right in the backfield for the entire game. So yeah, it's another spot where it's very, very interesting. Maybe, just maybe, Chris Jones and Frank Clark have that more experience in the big game than these boys on the Eagles O-line, but still, I would not put it past the Eagles O-line to dominate on the day.
Yeah. And actually, it's a good part then to move back in terms of the field as well, because Fionn, you mentioned it as well. We have the weapons that the Eagles have on offense of Dallas Goedert, AJ Brown, Devonta Smith, going up against that backfield of the Kansas City Chiefs with, okay, L'Jarius Sneed is a experienced cornerback. He will probably spend most of his time with AJ Brown, but you have a rookie in Trent McDuffie in that game against someone like Devonta Smith, which is going to be such a fascinating matchup that it could be someone that Jalen Hurts targets a lot in this game.
Absolutely. And I think it probably will be. I wouldn't be surprised if they go picking on him early in this game. And I think at the Kansas City Chiefs, how well he holds up is going to determine whether or not you can stick to that game plan, or what would be my game plan going into this game. I'm putting pressure on that offensive line, because if you're not able to set that pass clock going in Jalen Hurts' head and get him off his spot to where he's not feeling comfortable, he has shown they have a great connection. Both of these wide receivers are very, very difficult to guard. So I think it's going to be a key matchup. As you said, Sneed maybe is a little bit more experienced, maybe you have a little bit more faith in him, but they're going to come after McDuffie. They're going to come after all of these at some point in the game, and you need to be stood tall and accounted for. Otherwise, they're going to keep coming after you.
Yeah, I think that the McDuffie thing is very interesting as well. Like, what do you do in that situation? If AJ Brown goes out there, do you put McDuffie on him and give safety help over the top? Because we know that even with double coverage, AJ Brown can dominate. He loves mossing guys going up for that deep ball. So yeah, I don't know what you really do. Do you let Sneed follow AJ Brown around? And if he does, you still have Devonta Smith on the opposite side, who is capable of doing the same things that AJ Brown does. It's dominating offense.
Yeah, definitely. And let's flip the field here, and let's have a look at the Chiefs offense, because we can't not mention Patrick Mahomes, because this is his 3rd Super Bowl he's been to. He's 1-1. We haven't heard much about the ankle injury since the end of the Bengals game. We heard that he came out unscathed from that, which is obviously great to hear. He's not shown up on the injury report, so he's going to be good to go. We still will have to wait and see if he's the Patrick Mahomes that we saw in the Bengals game, where he had the ball, he was getting rid of it quickly. He tried his best not to run. Obviously he only did it if he really, really had to. Or we're going to, maybe the ankle is healed enough that he can start using his legs more if he wants to. We'll have to wait and see on that. An interesting side, and Rain, you mentioned it as well, and I go to you first on this one, that of course, Travis Kelce is there. He is the receiver in that team. And that seems to be a weakness of the Eagles defense this year, is that they don't play tight ends well.
Right. And even if you play tight ends the best in the league, you're still going to allow yards to Travis Kelce and probably a touchdown as well. The guy is just unbelievable, unguardable for most cases. You can double him with a linebacker and a safety. He'll outrun the linebacker and he'll outmuscle the safety. He lines up all over the field. You line up about wide, you can line him up in the slot, and he does what he does very, very well. That connection that he has with Patrick Mahomes is almost telepathic. So yeah, if the Eagles are going to concede points versus the Chiefs, I expect at least some of them to come through the route of Travis Kelce.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's got a knock-on effect for me as well. We saw in the Super Bowl game against the Bucs that he lost, that the Bucs really got him off his spot. They got him to move backwards quite a lot, where he was relying on that arm strength to try and get the ball back up to where his receivers were. And I think that was a case of him not being comfortable in that short, quick time frame and trying to extend the plays, and very clever Bucs defense to try and force him backwards. If he gets in a rhythm with Travis Kelce, he's not going to feel that pressure. He's not going to feel that pressure to have to make a play if he feels Kelce's always open as his blanket, as the tight ends traditionally are, in that kind of short intermediate. And they could take him and do damage deep as well, let's not forget. But I think if they establish him as that go-to point, which they have done very well this season, it could make life very difficult on the Eagles' defensive front to try and make Mahomes feel the pressure, because as much as we talk about Hurts' legs, and Mahomes certainly has a hurt leg, he can still do damage and has done in the past. So let's see how healthy it is. That will also be a determining factor. But if it's healthy enough, he's plenty able to break out and get 10, 15, 20-yard games at a time on that leg of his.
How long have you been waiting to say that hurts?
That just comes naturally there. That just flows out of me. When you talk as much as I talk, these things have a funny way of just falling together.
Absolutely not. I can see the script and the reflection of your glasses. You've been waiting for ages. You've had that written for ages.
I have a whole board of all the different ones.
But no, you are right. Interesting on the wide receiver front, though, for the Chiefs. They put Mecole Hardman on IR. He is out for this game. We do not know yet about Kadarius Toney, if he's going to make it. He's still questionable at the moment after limping off against the Bengals. Sorry, I lost the team there for a second. And Juju Smith-Schuster as well is still technically questionable, but I think he is in better shape to make it other than Tony. I think there's a bigger question mark on him. With Hardman out and what he can do in that passing game with his speed, it looks as though that responsibility will fall on the shoulders of Sky Moore. And the way I mentioned about Trent McDuffie and defense being a rookie, he's a rookie now, Sky Moore coming into it. He hasn't maybe hit the ground running as he would have liked in Kansas City this season, but he, of course, was pivotal in the Chiefs setting up that game-winning kick with his punt return in the fourth quarter against the Bengals. Maybe, just maybe, he is coming into, I'll not say form, but maybe he's coming more comfortable with the NFL level at a crucial time.
2 weeks to prep as well, Darrell. Let's not forget that's going to be crucial for a rookie like him, especially when the playbook kind of goes out the window a little bit. It's going to be a special playbook. You're going to have a lot of special plays specifically for the Super Bowl. It could be really good. I think wouldn't it be a great story if he had his best game in the Super Bowl and goes off and maybe scores the winning touchdown or something? I think that'll be really cool. That's something I'm definitely rooting for.
Yeah, no, I think he could have a very pivotal role. I think what we've seen from his kick return gives me enough confidence to say that he is going to be a good player with the ball in his hands. He just needs to get free at the line of scrimmage. So if he starts taking some lessons off Kadarius Toney, kind of getting open nice and quick, when he gets that ball in his hands, he can be as dangerous as the likes of Tyreek Hill or any of those guys, because he's got the speed, he's got the vision. So yeah, I think if they can get him open in this game, he will play a pivotal role. So yeah, we'll just have to see. The sky is the limit for him.
Ah,
He did it. He did it. He
Your
did the
glasses
thing.
as well. Yeah, I can see that too. Bad day to be wearing glasses, boys. You should put your contacts in today. But I guess before we move on and sort of look at probably winners of this game, is there any sort of area, any other area of the field that we haven't mentioned that you guys are going to be on the lookout for?
Special teams. Something always
Elaborate.
happens. That's it.
It's
Just
just-
something always
no
happens
more-
on
no
the
more
field.
needs to be said.
A guy kicks it.
Who's
Some guy
special
catches it.
teams?
Sometimes he doesn't catch it. That's a bad thing. Sometimes the guy doesn't kick it good. That's also a bad thing. Special teams.
Sky cams as well. Watch out for ropes and stuff.
Special players play on special teams.
Okay, good.
Also, the sphincters. The sphincters could well play a role in this game.
Have I ever told you your insight is pivotal to the success of this show, Fionn?
Yes. Yes, you have.
Okay, perfect. Hey, look, let's give kickers a bit of love here. You know, Harrison Butker has had a underwhelming season by his standards. Jake Elliott has actually had a very, very good season. You know, if you have to pick one to take your game-winning kick, who would you rather have?
Skycam. Just zip
Butker all
that
day
thing
long
in.
for me.
Yeah.
Yeah, I
For
go
me, it's
Elliott. I'm
Butker.
gonna go Elliott.
He has the postseason experience. He made the game winner last week. I think he's going to feel a little bit more comfortable in this game than Jake Elliott is. So if it comes down to it, game winner, I'm taking the guy who's made that kick before.
I'm going for Elliott. I'm going to go for form over function.
Form over function. I like that. I do like that. I'm just having to look. You do know, though, that Jake Elliott was the kicker for the Eagles when they won the Super Bowl a couple of years ago, right?
Okay.
I didn't, but I'm glad I now picked him. Now he has form and function.
Good.
Now Fionn's pick is even more justified. But hey, look.
I'd take Joey Sly.
I knew you would take Joey Sly. Of course you would take Joey Sly. Well, I'm taking Jason Myers then, all right? Fine. All right. And then
Is there anything to be said for Brent Maher?
Bring him in on a one-day contract.
Just move the goalpost
as long as he doesn't have to
meters to the left.
Yeah, as long as he doesn't have to kick doesn't have to kick a extra point in any game ever, he should be fine.
I think you were good at just kick. You could have just shut it off at kick, as long as he doesn't have to kick.
Just kicking. Just as long as he doesn't have to kick. Yeah. He can be like the motivator. He'd be like the Mr. Motivator of that team. It could work, you know.
Yeah.
Put a blindfold on. Don't tell him where he is. He'll have no problem making him then.
But hey, look,
this is not a football pitch.
You are not kicking a football. But what we should talk about, though, we should mention about good kickers, and that's Tyg Leader and his kicking academy. Have you seen the Ross Bulger RTE news sort of piece that they did on him?
I did see just some clips. Yeah, I thought that was pretty cool. All right.
He was brought. I think
someone needs to give him a contract.
I think some college is going to pick up that Ross, because I don't know if you saw the video. I think he went over to a college to try out, or a college rep came over to him, but he was obviously practicing his kicking and he's right-footed, and he says, "Oh, I can do one left-footed if you want." And the coach is like, "No way, you can't do that. I don't believe you for a second." Kicks it left-footed right in the corner, like on the 2-yard line. The coach is going absolutely insane. And that video has gone viral, which is great. The kicking academy that Tyg Leader set up is absolutely fantastic. It's given people an opportunity, more Irish players to go over and represent Ireland in colleges and hopefully soon in the NFL. But like I said, a big shout out to Tyg Leader and the Kicking Academy for that. We are going to take a quick break. No, we're not. I'm sorry. We're not going to take a quick break. I'm very sorry. I have to do predictions.
The most important
I have to do predictions. I'm very, very sorry. And Fionn, because you reminded me, you get to go first. Eagles versus Chiefs. Who are you going to go with? And I want your MVP choice as well.
Okay, no problem.
It can't be Jason Kelce.
That's okay. I was going to go for the Kansas City Chiefs to win. I think it's going to be a decent battle. I think it's going to be split offense, defense. I don't think it's going to be necessarily a defensive slugfest. There's going to be a little bit of offense in it. I'm going to go 24-17 21, Kansas City Chiefs, and Kelsey is gonna win the MVP.
Travis.
Travis?
Kelsey is gonna win the MVP.
Okay. All right.
Kelsey will win an MVP.
Good. For me, it comes down to who has the big game experience. As I said with the kicker, Jake Elliott, never done it before. No, but in terms of offense, Patrick Mahomes has been in this game 3 times out of the last 4. That's going to stand to him in this game. He is not going to have the same nerves that Jalen Hurts is. Super Bowl 50 still gives me panic attacks to this day. That game was over before it got started, and the Carolina Panthers were the better team the entire season. So when it comes down to a Super Bowl, it doesn't really matter what your form is. It matters how your bottle is. And does Hurts have the bottle? He might. But for me, I'm taking Patrick Mahomes in this game. I'm going with the Kansas City Chiefs. And as Fionn said, that this is set up to be a high-scoring game with 2 high-scoring offenses. That's not going to happen because it never does. It's going to be 24-18, and I'm taking Patrick Mahomes as my Super Bowl MVP.
Okay. I like that. I do. I really do like that. I came across an interesting stat for this game. And it could be an omen. It might not be. Because for me, I'm finding it very hard to separate these 2 sides. I think that it's going to be a really high-scoring affair. The point spread at the moment is 50 at the time of recording. So I might think it could be over. I was looking at the stats since 2014. Okay. Only twice has the designated home team, so the team not wearing their white jerseys, won. The Chiefs are wearing white jerseys this Sunday because the Eagles are the designated home side. I'm going to go with the Chiefs on this one to keep the tradition alive, the white clean jerseys up there on the podium after the game. I'm going to go with Patrick Mahomes as my MVP. I know, very boring choice, but look, listen, the winning quarterback normally always wins it, unless you're Cooper Kupp, who won it last year. Or Kelsey.
Which I'm not even allowed to bet on. Paddy Power has banned me.
You could probably do that, like ask Paddy Power thing, and they'd say,
definitely could do
"Yeah, give me the odds on Jason Kelsey to be MVP." But it could work. But yeah, I'm gonna go with the Chiefs. High scoring game, and I'm gonna go with Patrick Mahomes as the MVP for the Super Bowl. Like I said, now we are going to take a quick break. And when we come back, we are delighted to bring you our interview we recorded earlier on this week with Joy Taylor from Fox Sports 1. Of course, she is the host of the show Speak. It was a great chat, and we will bring it to you momentarily. And you're welcome back to the Under Center podcast with myself, Dara, and I have Fionn alongside me too, but we're not alone. We are delighted to welcome on our second guest for our Super Bowl show. You may have seen her on Speak on FS1, also previously on the Colin Coward show as well. Joy Taylor. Joy, how are you?
I'm doing great. Thank you so much for having me.
thank you so much for taking the time to speak to us today. I'm sure it's quite a busy week leading up to the Super Bowl, and we really appreciate any sort of time that you have for us today.
No, I'm happy to be here.
Excellent stuff. Excellent stuff. First question I always ask with the guests and stuff as well. Have you ever been to Ireland, or have you got any plans to go to Ireland?
I haven't been to Ireland, but I do have plans to come to Ireland. I will be in Ireland in I guess in a month or so. Yeah, in a month. So I've never come before, but I'm bringing my mother. It was her 70th birthday this last week, and she's always wanted to go. So I am taking her on a mother-daughter trip to Ireland. So we're gonna go to Dublin, which I'm very excited about.
Nice.
Oh, excellent stuff. And have you got your trip planned out? Have you know exactly where you need to go?
Yeah, I'm a big itinerary person. I like to travel a lot, and I leave room for a little chaos, for a little adventure. But especially if it's somewhere I haven't been before and there's things I really want to see, I always find it's nice to check and see if you need tickets for something, if there's a recommended time you need to go, if something's going to close at a certain time, do a little research so you're not just running around and, feeling like you missed stuff. So, we have a pretty solid itinerary. I'm very excited about it.
What's top of the list? What's your favorite thing you're looking forward to the most?
Well, we're going to go to the Cliffs of Moher, which I'm very excited about.
Yeah.
I'm a big Game of Thrones fan, so I'm going to go nerd out there. And I'm also pretty excited. She's a big whiskey drinker, my mom, and so we're going to check out the Jameson exhibit.
Take your pick.
Yeah.
Every third corner is a whiskey distillery in Dublin, so you'll be all right.
We're from Pittsburgh originally. She was born and raised there, obviously lived there most of her life, and I was born and raised in Pittsburgh. And Pittsburgh is pretty well known for its pubs as well, and actually has a really fun St. Patrick's Day parade and a big Irish community there. So we're ready. I feel we're ready.
Good.
I'm not like 25-year-old Joy ready, but I'm gonna harken back to that for that week and see what we can do.
Yeah. Well, for the whiskey distillery especially, it's great because there's so many different things you can do. So you can do the walking tour. There's like a whiskey tasting tour you can also do. We actually were at one a couple of weeks ago. It was a cocktail making class, which was great. So we went and it's a big round table and they have all the ingredients in front of you. And so I think we made a whiskey sour and an old fashioned. He runs you through it and you make it there. And it was actually a really, really good experience.
I love an old fashioned. So that will be something we look into.
Also, just a little tip as well. If you happen to be there early or if you have some time afterwards, there is a great pub just a little up from it called the Cobblestone. It's great. First of all, the Guinness is fantastic. Next of all, then that is where you would get a lot of traditional Irish music in it as well.
Oh, okay.
That they always have people playing like in a corner or something like that, and everyone's just there standing with their pint, just enjoying the music, having a good time. It's definitely worth going to for a little sense of like proper Irishness there that maybe you wouldn't normally see like if you're on itineraries planning for it and stuff.
The Cobblestone.
The Cobblestone, yeah.
Okay. All right. I'm gonna remember that. I'm gonna have you guys send that to me afterwards.
We'll send it on.
I need the local recommendations too. So
yeah. No problem. We'll definitely send that on afterwards for sure. But one other question I have to ask you before we get into obviously the serious matters of the football and stuff like that. For the Super Bowl itself, if you're at home watching it, what is the Super Bowl snack of choice then that you would have to have for it?
Yeah, I'm a big wings person. So I, as of right now, will be home watching the Super Bowl. We'll be there live during the week, but because we do a show here in the studio, I'm in my dressing room at the studio. We do a show live from LA. On Monday, I usually come back to LA even after the Super Bowl coverage. So I'm probably not going to Super Bowl this year. I will probably be home and I will be ordering lemon pepper wings.
Oh, nice. Nice. Lemon pepper wings is a good one. We don't sort of have that much here, for not a big need for lemon pepper. It's mostly just, isn't it, barbecue and buffalo at the moment.
Yeah, well,
you got to get the lemon pepper.
Yeah, and the
there.
Super Bowl's in the middle of the night for us, so like we kind of already had our dinner. It's a little bit of midnight snacking, so super spicy hot wings don't lend itself well to going to sleep. After the Super Bowl,
You might want to stick to some pretzels or something.
Yeah,
That's a typical sort of DB line right there. Like, actually, Joy, a little sighting. We actually play on a football team here in Ireland, American football team, and they're called the North Dublin Pirates, and Fiona's actually our star safety. So that's why he's talking about not eating too heavy in the middle of the night. But see, now me, I'm a D lineman, so I'm like, if you want to give me wings at 11:30 at night or 11:30 in the morning, just give me the wings. It's absolutely fine.
Yeah, you gotta bulk up to play that position.
Exactly. It's bulking season 365 for me, I have to. But actually, also another person who is doing quite well playing football is actually, I noticed it, your nephew Mason. He's had a great freshman year there at LSU.
He is. I'm very proud of him. He's a true footballer. He loves to play football. He's into it from the moment he started playing. It's really in him. And I'm really proud of him. He had a great freshman season. He's a true freshman also. So he didn't redshirt. So he went straight from high school to LSU and had that performance this year and is now minted into the, LSU lore with that win over Alabama. So he's done a great job. And I'm excited to see what they do next season with another year of Coach Kelly's recruiting and development there. So it was exciting for us.
Yeah, well, I guess, being the auntie as well, I'm sure you're not afraid to say to him as well, Mason, if you had a bad game, I'm going to be telling everybody. Everyone on speak is going to know.
I'm a big softie. I mean, he didn't really have, bad games, but I do. I'm a big softie with them. I'm not quite as hard on them as I am, the professional players. But, I think in college in general, I'm a little bit softer with, critiquing these are, I don't like to call them kids because they're young men and young women, but they're not professionals and the expectations should be as such. When you get paid to do something, I mean, I get paid to do this, I should be held to a standard of that. There's expectations that come with that. So I think for college kids in general, and I'm sure you guys understand how insane college football fans are, particularly SEC fans. It's definitely a lifestyle, and it's difficult for us as older adults to process negative feedback and social media feedback. So I had the privilege at 36 years of age of growing up. I remember before the internet, so I certainly remember before social media, and I've grown a callous towards that kind of feedback. And, I do feel for young people who are in any kind of business, whether it's, just, being a pop star, being a football player, being a volleyball player, anytime that you're in the public eye as a young person dealing with that kind of, just feedback in general, because I don't think that we're really programmed to get this much feedback, good or bad, as humans. Like, we should just not know how this many people feel about us. So there's a lot to process, but for that reason, I'm a big softie with them. I try to make sure that they stay encouraged and don't pay too much attention to what people are saying, when you lose or things don't go your way, because they're very fickle. They're going to, love you when everything is great, and they're going to say terrible things about you when everything is bad. And, you should strive to find a place where you can stay level-headed about all of it and really ignore the good and the bad from it.
Yeah. And it's fascinating because I kind of, when it comes to especially college football, because you have these sort of like diehard, especially like if you're from this place, this is your team, college football. It's similar over here because we have our local game like GA Gaelic football. Like if you're born in a county similar to a state, like that's your team, and people are so engrossed in it when it comes to that season that like they just want the best for it. And like you're saying, it can be tough sometimes to understand that, like, okay, these guys are college students, they're going to mess up, we have to allow it, but it kind of, they have to try and think like that, but then they also be like, well, like, this is still my team and I still want them to win.
Right. And it's hard as fans to balance that because fan is short for fanatic. And, none of this what we do is reasonable when you really think about it. So it is kind of hard to stay balanced, but that's why for me, even when I, do the show every day, it's important to remember you're talking about, human beings who are doing their best, and are trying to win. And, there's nobody out there who's like, I don't care if we win or lose. So even if it's just, I want to win because I'm going to make more money, everyone has different motivations. So just keep in mind that, somebody has to lose. And sometimes it's not because they don't care or because they're stupid or because they, aren't good. There's got to be a winner and a loser, and the winner gets to tell the story and the loser has to deal with the negativity. That's how it goes. But it doesn't have to be the end all be all.
Well, while we're on that point, Joy, I think there's no greater example of that than the Super Bowl. It's the two best teams that have played all season. They are the two best teams, but one of them's going to lose this thing. And there's two quarterbacks involved. Obviously, Patrick Mahomes is becoming quickly a legend of the NFL at the moment. Jalen Hurts has played outstanding this season after maybe a little bit of criticism the season prior. Has he faced, in your opinion, pressure like this so far in his young career? And do you think maybe it's going to make life a little bit more difficult for him in this Super Bowl because Mahomes has been there, done that? He has a little bit of a rhythm. He kind of knows how the day and the week is going to fall and how it's going to pan out. Does that play in at this level in your experience?
Oh yeah, I definitely think it matters. I mean, Super Bowl week is crazy for us. So Super Bowl week for the players is really chaotic. There's a lot going on. You're having to do a lot of different things. Your routine is totally messed up. It's obviously a ton of pressure. You're preparing in a different place. There's just a lot of factors, and nothing is everything, but everything is something. And when you have that experience, to your point, Mahomes knows what to expect, what he's walking into, what it's going to look like, what it's going to feel like. Experience in these games matters. Now, will it end up mattering? Who knows? We have to watch the game and see what happens. We were talking about Nick Foles earlier, for the Philadelphia Eagles just a few years ago. I mean, he's not Tom Brady. Tom Brady obviously had much more experience than Nick Foles in the NFL, let alone in, Super Bowl games, and it just didn't matter. So, I do think it's something, and I think that Jalen Hurts is the type of player that he will handle it well. He's not somebody who gets too high or too low. Like, he's obviously shown that he's a leader and can play at a high level, and he's overcome some things this year. He's obviously still dealing with an injury as well as Patrick Mahomes is. So I have faith that he'll play a poised game, but it is a different week for sure. It's a really, a different 2 weeks because you're rehabbing, you're making sure that you're healthy, then you're traveling out to Arizona, you're getting set up in your hotel, you're finding out, where you're getting your food from, like all these little things that you don't have to think about during the regular season and don't have to think about when you're home. They all play a factor in how much sleep you're getting and all those things. So again, it could matter, it could not, but it is going to be a different week.
There, we can't hear you.
Sorry about that. I was going to say I was in the middle of a great point there, and I'm after losing. We'll continue on anyway. But I was going to say the extended media coverage that comes with Super Bowl week as well. A lot of guys obviously appearing on TV shows, and then obviously the press conferences as well is more intense than it has been obviously with a normal game week too, which is something for like with Hurts and any other player who's gone to their first Super Bowl as well, that they haven't experienced it before, and it's going to be all new to them too.
Yeah, it is going to be different for everybody, all the new young players, and it's a huge stage. There's a lot of pressure. It's your whole season. In some cases, your whole career will come down to this one game and this one moment. And generally, Super Bowls that are tightly contested come down to one play, so to one person's mistake or one person's great play. So yeah, I mean it's a very intense atmosphere for the players, and keep in mind also the coaches as well. You can kind of get into your own head. You have to make quick decisions in situational football, and Andy Reid is a great coach who has a lot of experience at a high level, including a Super Bowl and coaching in another Super Bowl. And this is Nick Sirianni, who is a young coach, his first big moment like this. So, I think they're two really evenly matched teams. The Philadelphia's roster is obviously much deeper than the Kansas City Chiefs, but when you look at the experience at the coaching position, at their leadership positions, and of course, Patrick Mahomes and Travis Kelce, I think we got the two best teams in the league, obviously the 2 1 seeds, and we're going to get I'm hoping for a really great game.
How do you approach this week? Because obviously it's, as you said, it's almost 2 weeks. And you mentioned as well at the start of the show is like everything is something, but it's also nothing. And on the media side of things, how do you guys, is it tough for you guys? Is it your Super Bowl? If there's a lot of media coverage, you're interviewing a lot of players nowadays, they're very media trained. Every once in a while we get a Marshawn Lynch who says, I'm not here, so I don't get fined. And everyone loves that. But how do you guys do? Is it a lot more background research, trying to find that nugget, trying to find that information, that golden piece of news or text or snippet that makes it interesting, that isn't just the same as what everyone else has got?
Sorry about that.
No problem.
No, it definitely is our Super Bowl too. Well, we're not reporters, at least on our show.
Sure.
We sort of react to what the reporters are giving us from the press conferences, but where everyone's covering the same thing.
Exactly.
We're all covering the same game. We're all using the same sound bites. We're all following the same Twitter beefs and all that stuff.
Mm-hmm.
So it's interesting to find a new angle and to find something that makes your coverage unique when everyone is talking about the same interviews and everyone is using the same Mahomes soundbite, and a lot of the same players are going around in the car wash to different shows. So yeah, it's a challenge to find a fresh angle on a game that you really covered for 2 weeks, because once the championship games are done and we know who's going to be in the Super Bowl, we really have 2 weeks of shows to do. Now, we've gotten a lot of news this week outside of the Super Bowl, with Tom Brady retiring and Sean Payton getting hired with the Broncos and D'Amico Ryans getting hired with the Texans, and now we have some Aaron Rodgers news. So we've gotten some other stuff which has broken up the Super Bowl coverage a little bit, but yeah, you're always trying to find new angles and do the best show, because this is when the whole world is watching.
I'm sure the Pro Bowl as well will get 5 or 10 minutes of airtime at some point over the next week. I don't know. How do you think this is going to play out? It's a little bit off topic, but what's your take on the new Pro Bowl scheme?
I think they had to do something.
Yeah.
It's the game. Everyone knows nobody was really trying in those games, and it's kind of almost dangerous, because you guys know, you play football. If you're not trying, then it's always somebody this dangerous out there, not taking it serious, and then someone gets hurt. And I mean, God forbid you get hurt in the Pro Bowl. And it just, fans know it's not serious. So I think we'll see what the skills, the flag football thing looks like. I will say, I don't really find the NBA All-Star game itself to be that interesting. I mean, it's all offense, although it matters a little bit more now. But I mean, this 3-point contest, the dunk contest, the skills competition, even the celebrity game, like all that's like interesting and fun. We're not watching it like compelled, but it's fun. Yeah. It's fun to watch. We don't take it too seriously. And, it's cool to be the 3-point winner at the All-Star. It's cool to win the dunk contest. We talk about those things. So it could be the pivot that the Pro Bowl needed, because we have like, to me, I love the home run derby for baseball. I don't really care about watching the game that much, I mean, again, like they've done things that make it matter. But like, to me, the home run derby is really fun. It's not that serious, but like, it's cool to win the home run derby. And they've made some changes to it that make it really compelling. And you have a clock, and there's a little more urgency to it. So we'll see. I'm optimistic that the changes will help it become more interesting. I'm here for content. So if they can find something that makes it urgent, then I'm all here for it, because it wasn't working before. So I will say, I'll give them credit for pivoting.
Yeah. I think that's on, like, even just seeing online when it comes around the Pro Bowl time, the one sort of video I see reoccurring every year is when they used to do the long throw competition back in the 90s, and obviously I think it's they come the long drive this year competition that they're bringing in. So any sort of thing that just makes it a little more interesting and will help. I think was it during the COVID year when they couldn't have it, they played Madden together. It was different, and I think that had people's eyes on it because it was different and it wasn't the usual one. Because like seeing Mac Jones run for a 60 yards quarterback keeper last season and having like 40 yards of green grass with no one going after him, I think people then realize like, yeah, these guys just they're as uninterested as we are watching it, and it was definitely worth time for a change for sure. Joy, before we let you go, I'd love to know about how things are going with Speak, because obviously it's different to what you were doing previously with Colin, because that was obviously more one-on-one, and this one now is kind of a more round table, and you're getting to give your point of view a lot more on this show as well. And how have you found the transition over?
So I loved working with Colin. It was a great run that we had on the show. We really enjoyed working with each other. We're still very good friends. And it was time for me to transition into a space where, I was a full-time opinionist. I wasn't in a role anymore, and, it was my show as much as anyone else's on the show. And Speak has been great. I mean, the guys are really fun to work with. We have a lot of fun every day, which is always great when you can enjoy your job and the people that you work with. So we get to, have a lot of input in the topics that we do, and we're really passionate, speakers, and try to do a show that really reflects our personalities and what we're interested in, and, what we find compelling, and hope that the viewer finds it compelling too. So it's been really fun. I really enjoyed this season. I'm excited to do some live shows from Super Bowl from Arizona, and I've enjoyed it. It's been a pretty seamless transition, really, from every show that I've done on Fox, from Undisputed to Herd, because I did a lot of fill-in work on Herd before I came over from Undisputed, and then moving from Herd to Speak, I had done similar fill-in work on Speak, so I'd worked with the guys before coming over. So it's been very great. I really enjoyed it, and I hope everyone else is enjoying watching it too.
Yeah, definitely. It's been fantastic. Now it's tough for us over here with the time difference, but definitely catching up on it is fantastic. And I want to ask as well, because you mentioned obviously your time with Undisputed, and I listened to you on a previous podcast talk about, putting the shows together. And I think you mentioned that when you were with Skip and Shannon, you would have, say, a 15-minute sort of prep together, and then they would go off with their producers and sort of work out the show. Whereas with Colin, it was kind of more of like a 2-hour meeting with sort of running through everything, wanting to get everything covered. Which sort of side of that would you prefer yourself personally? And then probably on the back of that, then what sort of, how does it work there on Speak at the moment?
So I'm sort of in the middle, which is kind of what we do on Speak. So we will have our topics lined up early in the morning or the night before, and then obviously we see what changes throughout the day. And I will prep with my producer, my personal producer, and I'll go over, we'll have each topic, and okay, this is the question. These are statistics that I would need for this. Let's build a graphics when we talk about this. Let's pull this piece of tape, whatever. So we'll go through the whole show, myself and the producer, and then I'll come to work, do hair and makeup, and then we'll do a meeting all together. So we'll do a half an hour meeting about an hour before the show, where the four of us and all of our producers are together in a room, and we go through and see where everybody is on each topic. Sometimes we'll really get into it and kind of do the whole segment in the meeting, and then have to be like, okay, save it for TV. We're getting like too excited about this. We need to save this energy for the show. And then sometimes we just bounce to the topic, like, okay, this is where you are. So we can know like who we should go to first. If somebody has a specific story that's kind of cool in this topic, obviously Shady has a lot of stories. So sometimes we'll go to him, or if it's a Cowboys topic, it makes sense to go to Dave first. So we're sort of a hybrid where we do a ton of prep overall, obviously, which all the shows do, but we do some of it together and the bulk of it apart. but it's a longer meeting and a more involved meeting than Undisputed. So we truly are the hybrid of those two styles, and it works for our show because we have more people on our show in 4, and there's 2 on obviously on either of those shows, and the show length. Our show is an hour and a half. Undisputed is 2.5 hours. Obviously, Herd is 3 hours, and also Herd is a radio show, so the format is really different between Herd and Undisputed, which is a debate show. So it makes sense for them not to really know what they're really going to say. Like, they need to just kind of know the direction that each other is going in. And Herd, it's really important to kind of flush all of it out because you have a lot of time to fill. So you want to make sure that, the topics that you have will fill that time. So every show has such different structure and beats that the prep is different, but that's sort of where we are, which is like a hybrid of the two of those styles.
Yeah. And I guess it is important as well that you don't talk about the topics maybe too much, because if there is sort of takes that you want to give, you don't want to give that away because you want the reaction from the co-host to be organic and maybe not manufactured as if they've heard it before.
Right. Well, sometimes we're so passionate about the topic, it just doesn't matter, or we're going to react the same regardless. But yeah, I mean, it's nice to kind of drop something on somebody on TV and they'll, that organic response is fun also. So
look, listen, Joy, very last question. Who's going to win on Sunday?
So honest answer, I don't know yet. I usually save my pick for Friday before the Super Bowl. There's a lot that can happen between now and then, but I truly think they're very evenly matched teams. A lot of people are kind of selling the Chiefs as underdogs in this game, which I am not buying. I don't think that the Chiefs roster is as bad as everyone is saying it is. And they also have Travis Kelce and Andy Reid. So outside of Mahomes, they have some pretty impressive weapons and return players that have been in the system for a while. So they're kind of trying to build it like that, like it's a scrappy underdog Chiefs. Like, I don't know. I'm not buying that. The roster for Philadelphia is very deep for sure. And they have some Super Bowl winning players that were there when they won in 2017, 2018. But, for every position, you've got Andy Reid versus Nick Sirianni. Okay. It's way more experience, championship, whatever. Patrick Mahomes versus Jalen Hurts. Obviously, Patrick Mahomes is the best young player in the league. What's your best quarterback in the league? What is Jalen Hurts going to do in this game? He's an all-pro this year also. But then you just go down top to bottom. I think they've had really similar seasons, and I think I'm hoping for a really great game. I'm not a fan of either of these teams in the sense that like I'm a fan of the Dolphins or the Steelers. I love what both of these organizations have done this year. So I know I'm skirting around your answer, but I just really think this is like, if I can't be outraged for anyone's pick. There are some Super Bowls where I'm like, are you serious? Like, obviously this team's going to win, but this is not one of those situations. So I'm looking forward to watching hopefully a really great game. And because the championship weekend was a little, disappointing. I mean, the second half of Bengals Chiefs was exciting, but I'm hoping that, as fans, we just get to watch a really great game. But I will give my pick on Friday
for sure, probably
during the show. And I'm honestly don't know which way I'm going as of yet.
That's okay.
Who do you guys think?
See, now we're putting us out. We're not giving our pick until Friday.
Okay.
There's no scoops. There's no scoops going today.
Honestly, I don't know. See, I know who Fionn would prefer to win because Fionn's actually a Commanders fan, so he doesn't want the Eagles to win. I know that for sure.
That's understandable.
For me, like, there's no ill will or anything for that being a Seahawks fan, so I don't mind. So I don't know. I'd like Andy Reid, so I'd like the Chiefs to win. So I'd say the Chiefs.
Well, there you go. You guys are already feuding.
There we go.
That's what it's all about.
Oh, we always are. We always are. That's what makes it a good show. So we're always at each other's neck a little bit. But Joy, listen, we really appreciate the time you've given us today. We hope you enjoy the Super Bowl. We hope you enjoy Ireland as well when you are over.
Thank you. Cobblestone, right?
The Cobblestone. Yeah.
Don't worry. I will email you that there as soon as we're finished, so that you know for sure. And if you haven't already booked before, have a look at Jemison for those different tours that you can do. I would really recommend the cocktail making class. It's really good.
Okay, I will look into both of those. My friend actually sent the itinerary earlier today, so I'm going to tell her to add that stuff.
Cool.
Excellent stuff. Excellent stuff. Listen, again, thanks so much. Enjoyed Super Bowl weekend. Like I said, enjoy Ireland when you get over.
Thank you, guys. Thank you for having me.
Thank you.
You know why man's so different this year? Feel sim. It changes everything. So I can finally throw the rock.
Hey, check it. Okay, I feel unstoppable. Losing's impossible.
And put the ball where only I can catch it.
Thing they know.
Yo, hit boy, what you think?
I could make the biggest hit in the game, man.
You ain't lying, bro.
We live?
Oh, we live.
We made it till you got stars. Go out and shot for you.
Taylor?
Wait, just
We're live.
wait, what? Slice up the defense with Field Sense.
You can do that too.
We need some big plays, big hits right now.
Say less.
Game on the line.
Woo. Now that's a hit.
Time we do deep.
Touche.
So, what can you change with Field Sense?
Down. I don't judge, I sing. You staying down for the come up till I reign supreme.
Everything.
Let's get it. Yeah. Hit boy. We got another one. Ha. Man, y'all boys ain't ready for this, man.
And welcome back to the final part of our Super Bowl preview show here on the Under Center podcast. Dara, Fionn, and Rian here with you. We've given our views on the game. We've given our predictions. Let's talk about a few bets for this game that could be quite tasty ones to look at. And we're going to go around the table twice. First time, we're going to talk about a bet builder that we're liking. The second one is going to be some interesting prop bets that are normally around for this game. That could be a fun one to put on. And Fionn, as the betting, what can I say?
Guru.
Betting master? Guru? I was going to say master, but guru sounds good too. If you want to do that, we'll use that. As the betting guru, what is your bet builder that you're liking the look of most in this game on Sunday?
So it's the Super Bowl. I wanted to be positive. I've kind of split this over two bets. My first one is I'm going on the receiving yards. We're going to go Devontae Smith over 63.5, AJ Brown over 72.5, Travis Kelce over 79.5, and Isaiah Pacheco over 16.5 receiving yards. I'm going to hit the over on all four of them. And then, of course, you can't not put a bet on the quarterbacks in the Super Bowl. So I'm going to go both quarterbacks over on their rushing yards and under on their throwing yards, passing yards.
Now, how much squill are we making out of that, Fionn?
We're making out, the first one, they'll give you 12-1. On the second one, they'll give you 9-1.
Okay, decent odds.
So if we hit it, we get about 23 quid.
Me personally, I'm a little pussy. I'm going with a 3-leg bet builder, and I'm going the Kansas City Chiefs to win outright. I'm going the under on points total, and here's my outsider that makes you the bit of money. If he's fit, Kadarius Toney, anytime touchdown scorer, that'll give you 16-1 on this, and I think it's a very good bet builder.
It's not a bad bet builder.
You're going to need him to survive, though. You're going to need him to make the game.
Yeah.
Get that cash out like real quick as soon as you see the rosters come out.
Yeah, you see if he goes out of the game and that becomes a null bet, the odds are nothing. They're like 1.5-1. So yeah, not good.
Not good. No, but that's not too bad. I have one that can add in. You can add in an extra leg to this, which will increase the odds, which I like. But if you don't want to do it, you don't have to. So my first one is, if I have it here, sorry. The one time I need the app to work and it's not working for me. It's great, isn't it? Where are you? There you are. Okay, so first bet is I'm like the over as well. At the moment, it's 50.5, so I'm going to go with the over. I have Devontae Smith over 63.5 yards. I have Jalen Hurts to be under 238 yards throwing. I then have Patrick Mahomes to be over 9 19 and a half yards rushing. So I think his ankle is going to be okay for him to rush. Even if it's not, I think he rushed for over that anyway in the Bengals game with a bum ankle. So I think that will work. That is getting you odds of about 22-1. Now, I like the idea of throwing in an anytime touchdown scorer on this as well. And I like the idea of Jerick McKinnon. He is his go-to guy in the red zone. And if you are to go with that, it bumps the odds up to 58-1. So that's a big jump. That is a huge jump. If you want to throw even 50 cents on that, you can throw 50 cents on that. But there's sort of two that I'm looking at. I'm still undecided whether or not I want to throw in the Jerick McKinnon. An interesting one that I was tempted to add in, if you want to substitute in Jerick McKinnon, put in Jalen Hurts as an anytime touchdown scorer. You know, when they get close to the 2-yard line, they have that quarterback sneak where everybody just pushes him over. It could happen. It's one to look at as well. But let's go for some prop bets. And Rian, actually, I'll start with you first on this one. What's an interesting prop bet that you like to look at?
Well, I'm going to go with the only reason anybody watches the Super Bowl at all, and that's the halftime show. We have my namesake Riri performing at the halftime show, and I'm telling you, put all your money on Run This Town as the first song. Now, Paddy Power don't have the odds up yet. Shit for him, Paddy Power. But I bet you it's going to be long odds because it's a collaboration, so put all your money on Run This Town.
For me, does she sing that way?
Jay-Z.
Oh, okay. So will he be there?
Unlikely. Well, we'll see.
For me, I think there's only one obvious bet here. We all agree that the Kansas City Chiefs are going to win the Super Bowl. And why would they drink any other color of Gatorade other than red Gatorade? The Gatorade's going to be red. Slam it. Put all your money on it. There's no other way. There's no other color it could be. Is there even a red Gatorade? I don't know. But it's got to be red Gatorade for the Kansas City Chiefs going all over. And Andy Reid to drink every drop of it off himself.
Well, they have like blue flavor. They have to have red flavor.
No, they do have red flavor. They do have, it's red orange.
Yeah.
I always
orange.
go with blue.
Okay.
I always go with blue because there's 2 flavors of blue. So you're doubling your chances there.
Fruit punch is red.
Fruit punch. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
That's all right. I actually did look at the Gatorade color, and I'm actually going with orange. I think I like.
Well,
I think you can get odds of orange for 3-1.
What's red? I didn't even see the odds anywhere.
I think red is the favorite.
Oh, well, yeah. Obviously, it's the favorite. It's the most obvious one.
Yeah. Watch, it's going to be something like green or white or something. It's always a weird color. They always know because it's one of the biggest prop bets on it. But what about the coin toss?
Over under 50 seconds in the air.
Heads and tails are both the same, obviously.
Yeah.
I wonder what it's the odds.
Who cares? We're not degenerate gambler. Only degenerates bet on 50-50.
I'd like to see the odds, the odds, the history on it. I'd say it's probably. I have
the history. I have the history right here.
Shout it at us.
Oh, I was prepared for this. Right. So, in the last 9 years, okay, it's been heads 3 out of 9 times, and the other 6 have obviously been tails. Now, here's an interesting one. If you want to put a bet on after the coin toss, the last 8 teams to win the coin toss have gone on to lose the game. So if you're not sure who you want to win, if you're not sure who you think is going to win the game, wait until the coin toss. And then
these fans, these are what you call coincidences. And you should never look at them for betting.
Yeah. But do always smash the over on anthem
The NFL is
time.
scripted, so of course this happens.
Oh, true. Yeah. Apparently there's a documentary coming out. Vince McMahon was involved. Yeah.
Hit the over on the anthem time, Dara. There's always some L1 standing there squawking it out as long as she possibly can. Some irrelevant pop star from 1973.
I don't know. It was some drunk country music star last year, and he just wanted it over with. He was like, "And the land of the free," and walked off. See you later.
Yeah, country music star Chris Stapleton will hit the stage on Sunday at the Super Bowl to sing the national anthem. So, he is. Oh, he's a country singing, long-haired, long-beard cowboy.
Yep,
it's my spirit animal.
It's going to the over.
Hit the under. Country music
I would
boys,
say
they
hit
don't
the
have
under.
that long note.
I would say hit the under. I say I'm gonna go with I'd say if it was like a pop star or something like that, or something. I'd say hit the over because they obviously want to hit those higher notes and make them longer. But for a country music star, yeah, you normally get what 2 minutes 10 seconds or something is the betting line.
What about sticking 50 Cent on The Rock to show up and shite talk for 28 seconds?
What might want to get onto Paddy Power about that.
What odds could we get on glass breaking while he's talking and Steve Austin
randomest? Paddy, what's 50 Cent on there to be a power outage during the Super Bowl? I'll be right.
And this is it. You can bet on absolutely anything today on this game, which is absolutely fantastic because I love it. It's just because you can make the most craziest bets, and you know what? It could actually they could actually work out. What was it? There was one that's an interesting one that I saw that I didn't bring up. The position to score the first touchdown. What would you go with?
Offensive line.
God damn it. I should have asked.
That's how Jason Kelsey could win the Super Bowl. A rollout, a fake pull, declare himself eligible, fake pull, end zone toss.
Okay.
I shouldn't have asked.
I'm going tight end. Tight end. You have Goddard and you have Kelsey there. That's a good shout.
One of the balls Brett Maher kicked about 3 weeks ago lands in the end zone and counts as a touchdown.
You are going to be very disappointed on Monday evening eating dinner when all this stuff doesn't happen.
It's going to keep me occupied anyway. It's going to keep me enthralled.
Anyway, I think this is the perfect place to. Thanks.
Ruin the outro.
just like Brett Kern's punt.
Just like the actual Sky Cam.
My outro gets blocked by the Sky Cam. Right. This is officially where we are ending this show. Fionn, don't make me have to kick you off this now. I know you're excited. It's the end of the season. It's been a long season. I really appreciate all the effort you guys have been putting in this year. It's been fantastic having you as a part of it. But this is where we're going to end this edition of the show. Like and subscribe to us on YouTube, Under Center Podcast. Follow us on our socials at Under Center Podcast on Twitter and Instagram. Under Center Podcast, wherever you get your podcasts as well. We will be back next week to review the show. Maybe Fionn will be done watching the game by then. We don't know. Probably not. But, lads, as always, thank you so much.
Thank you.
Much appreciated.
And we hope you enjoy the game on Sunday, wherever you are watching it. And Fionn, I do hope you enjoy the game on Monday when you do watch it too. Hopefully it does remain spoiler for you. But like I said, that is all the time we have for. But until next time, stay safe. We'll see you soon.